film, one battle after another, was a lot of revolutionary aesthetics without the revolutionary thought. Our sponsor, who made this wonderful video possible, because today's sponsor understands how easy it is for people to become overwhelmed and overconsumed by debt, whether it's credit card debt, medical bill debt, personal loan debt. PDS Debt is here to help you flip the script. They understand that debt can become loud, messy, hard to ignore. It can overtake your life. But PDS Debt is here to help you. They've helped hundreds of thousands already cut the debt and get their life back on track and taking control of their future. If I was in the need for this product, this is absolutely what I would be using, and I might not be too far away from it, but I would be using it because PDS Debt is the most trusted, with a 5-star rating on Better Business Bureau, 5-star rating on Trustpilot, and tons of very positive, highly ranked Google reviews. PDS Debt is known for helping hundreds of thousands of people get out of debt. So don't let debt keep running the show. You're 30 seconds away from being debt-free. Get your free assessment and find the best option for you right now at pdsdebt.com/Julesy. That's pdsdebt.com/JOUELZY. pdsdebt.com/Julesy. And thank you to them for making this video possible. Hey guys, it's Julesy, and I'm here today to give you my thoughts on Paul Thomas Anderson's latest film, One Battle After Another. If you are watching, be sure to subscribe. And let's start here. I am a fan of Paul Thomas Anderson's work, particularly in collaboration with Daniel Day-Lewis. There Will Be Blood is one of my favorite films, a long, sprawling film set in the Texas oil fields of the early 1900s. And I do appreciate how Anderson tends to produce films that are based on notable reads. I love a man that reads, but One Battle After Another, for me, kind of confirms that maybe Paul Thomas Anderson has not done a wide enough and broad enough reading of Black women writers, particularly one, Toni Morrison, and two, an Octavia Butler, both who I have shirts celebrating. I understand that One Battle After Another, cinematography-wise, was an absolutely gorgeous, lush film. The pacing was great. The movie is almost 3 hours long, and it kept my full attention for the entirety of the film, especially in the second half. The visual elements, what that long winding road where a lot of the action and chasing happens in the California northern desert. Is that in the California desert? Is that still California we're in? Some of the temporal zoning does get lost in this film, but I loved the imagery. I love the way the imagery was set up to evoke deep emotion and reaction and played into the themes of the movie. This was an amazing cast of actors. There's Leonardo DiCaprio, Tiana Taylor, Regina Hall, Benicio del Toro, Wood Harris, that lady from Haim. Okay, some notable actors are in this film, and they really each give their all to their character, no matter how underdeveloped or how little lines their characters are actually given. They all are playing the ish out of them characters, okay? And I appreciated that. Now, I know there has been some discourse about how the Black women characters, particularly Tiana Taylor's main character of Perfidia, and is she really a main character? Because the lady ain't in the, once we get past the first 40 minutes of the film, poof, she gone. She only exists an afterthought. But Perfidia is one of the core characters of this film, and she is played by Tiana Taylor. We get Regina Hall, who plays Deandra, and Jungle Pussy, who plays the character called Jungle Pussy in the film. there has definitely been critique of the portrayal of Black women. And from what I've seen from the social media discourse, people in trying to push back against that critique, their immediate response before really thinking through and engaging with the critique is to say, well, we enjoy Black women behaving badly on the screen. We don't want your respectability politics. And yes, I did leave the theater feeling quite offended at the portrayal of Black women. I don't know what we would call them. And I don't know what we would call them because we didn't get much of an interior thought, an intimate portrayal of what their hopes, dreams, desires, and imagination of the future actually was. But we'll settle on the fact that, at minimum, they were some kind of activists. And I was offended by the portrayal of the Black women activists, not because I believe that Black women can only be portrayed in a particular light, but because this film fully lands to me as a white man's wet dream version of Queen and Slim, a film I also didn't like. But unlike Queen and Slim, I can stomach the ending of one battle after another. Queen and Slim pissed me off in such a way. Y'all have to go back a couple years to watch that review. It is on my YouTube channel. But my offense in these Black women characters is that there is a media lane of Black women who behave badly that Paul Thomas Anderson could have, and quite frankly, should have pulled from. Like, for instance, my biggest gripe with Tiana Taylor's character, Perfidia, is I understand how hard it is to pass up the opportunity. I understand how salacious the opportunity is to fully use Tiana Taylor's beautiful, gorgeous, banging body and waistline. Like, yeah, put it on full display. And if Perfidia's power is in the pussy, or if the pussy cannot evade the power that it evokes, Toni Morrison's Sula is sitting right there. Okay?
Blue Sky was about one's dependency on the world for identification, self-value, feelings of worth, whereas I wanted to explore something quite the opposite in Sula, where you have a woman who is whimsical, who depends on her own instincts. And both exaggerations I find deplorable, but my way is to push everything out to the edge to see if what it is really made, so that Sula would be, quote, a free woman. There's a lot of danger in that, you know, because you don't have commitments and you don't feel that connection. I think freedom, ideally, is being able to choose your responsibilities. Not having any responsibilities, but being able to choose which things you want to be responsible for. And so she is paired with a friend, Nell, who is the salt of the earth, who takes on the responsibilities of her children and whatever, as opposed to her very close friend, who has none, accepts none, and really and truly operates out of whimsy.
I think Toni Morrison is such a good author because she leans into the hedonism of the mundane. And I'm not even using hedonism as a pejorative here, but maybe the hedonism and the violence of the mundane, rather. And particularly in Sula is a character whose power is in her pussy because as a Black woman in society, it's so hard for her to evoke power elsewhere. And the city has a reaction to that. Her friends have a reaction to that. Sula herself has a reaction to that. And then we get the backstory. We get the thought process. We get the impetus. All right. We get the interior and intimate imagination of Sula to come to a full understanding of what that character's purpose is. With Perfidia, we get the stereotypes of postpartum motherhood, but we never get the history that precedes her, how those desires were made and shaped, and what those desires actually are. The opening scene, and spoiler alert here, yes. The opening scene is them blowing up Border Patrol. It's also unclear what year, what era, what decade this film is set in, because there's so little thought to surveillance in a post 9/11 world. You doing any sort of activism that blows up government buildings, baby, really before 9/11, baby. If this is post 1990s, put a mask on. Your ass getting caught. any other way. Anyhow, don't nobody wear no mask. Don't nobody wear no camouflage. Don't nobody cover nothing up. Perfidia is just hot and bothered, pussy boots down, while blowing up an immigration detention center on the border. Okay. Then we get the racialized lines because Wood Harris is dating that chick from Haim, and Perfidia and Leonardo DiCaprio's character are in a relationship, and we got to talk about the white dick and the white pussy and the black women's, and do you as a white man like the black women's, you like the black pussy? I guess. So necessary. So good. But I don't know why Perfidia is doing what she does, and what future does she imagine for her peoples, or her family. We get no clue into that. I don't even mind the hypersexual characters that exist in Perfidia and Jungle Pussy, whose only real dialogue in the film is a monologue during a bank robbery about she don't care if you could see her face. Okay. And the power of the pussy. Again, how great. I think this would have been a great opportunity, even if we have a black woman who, because of the state's coming down on her, the state power, the state hammer, the state violence that she's about to face, runs away from her own family. Lauren Olamina sits literally right there, the main character of Octavia Butler's Parable series.
And what I wanted to write was a novel of someone who was coming up with solutions of a sort. My main character's solution is, grows from another religion that she comes up with. Religion is everywhere. There are no human societies without it, whether they acknowledge it as religion or not. So I thought religion might be an answer as well as, in some cases, a problem. And in, for instance, Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents, it's both.
Definitely discusses when a woman in her revolutionary acts, in her fight for her people and for a collective of community, has to sort of sacrifice her child so that she could pursue other things. And it's not nearly that clean of a line. Like, Laura Olamina does not leave her child because of that. That child is taken from her. But I think there's a similar vein in which the character of Perfidia, we could just get more development, more thought processes, more thoughtfulness and care provided to that character and the choices that character makes, no matter how bad they come across to the viewer. But we don't get that. We get a brief struggle between her feeling clammed up in this and how easily Leonardo's character falls into the trappings of family life and let's leave that activism. And sure, there's a lot of white privilege wrapped up in that sentiment, but we don't really get any exploration of what is calling her back to the streets. What world is she fighting for? What vision of herself even is she trying to push forward and elucidate through her revolutionary act? This film, one battle after another, was a lot of revolutionary aesthetics without the revolutionary thought. Because even the group, the French 75, that are the activists, that are Leonardo's the bomber, Perfidia seems to be some sort of figurehead in the movement. Until Benicio del Toro's character comes about, we don't really get any meaningful thought processes and worldview of these people about why they're doing what they're doing. And I'm going to keep saying, what world do they imagine that they are fighting to create against the state? What exactly are they resisting? And it's not done. Even to the effect, I love Okweke Imize's polarizing book, You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, where the main character, Faye, is seeing this guy and he invites her to a Caribbean island. It gave Jamaica, but I don't remember in the book if they exactly say what island. But this man, is it Nassim, whatever, he's going after Faye, invites her to the island with him, and she falls in love with his father. Does she fall in love? She starts knocking boots with the daddy. And Okweke does a really good job at exploring how grief and trauma can inform people's decisions and can inform how emotionally tightly wrapped up and closed off they can be, and how that leads them to making certain decisions, and what it means when they finally unravel and open themselves up and have to reckon with the decisions that they've made. Okweke just has like really complex, full thought out books about women and femmes who behave badly. Shit. Freshwater. But that's about somebody with a personality disorder. It's kind of like a pseudo autobiography. But Ada, the main character in Freshwater, we get like a whole history of like Igbo and Nigerian culture. A good bit of the book is in Igbo or has Igbo phrasing in it. And it really kind of explores the way the mind splinters, and again, trauma can inform the way a person moves about the world. And when they're in these moments of making really deleterious decisions, what is informing that? What do they believe they're doing? And when they come to, what have they realized they've done? And Okweke does a really good job of shaping that internal world. And we just don't get any of that. We don't get that with Perfidia, who almost too quickly becomes caught up by the state. There is a scene where Perfidia in the bank robbery, and okay, the bank robbery is because they need more, and they're funding their own ammunition. You know, and this is the aesthetics of the revolution, right? Because prior to the surveillance state, yes, activists were able to fund a certain amount of their activism, of their state resistance movements through criminal activity like robbing people and banks. Post 1990, baby, that's a federal crime and they finna get you real quick. That money's being tracked. What are we doing here? We can't even get stuck on what's the point of a bank robbery if this is set in the modern world in the last 30 years, because Tiana, that Perfidia shoots the black security guy, and there's no thought, there's no process, there's no interior reality that we are getting any clue in to understanding why she loses her cool so easily and so shakingly gets stuck in just blowing up this security guard who was literally on the ground groveling. But I guess it has to happen because it is the action that changes the narrative early on in the film and sets her up to have to re-engage with Sean Penn, who plays the shit. I forgot to mention that Sean Penn is in this film, y'all. And that man might get an Oscar. Sean Penn's portrayal of Lockjaw might get him some sort of Film Academy Awards, because my God, my damn, all right, Perfidia is at the top of the power dynamic when she first engages with Lockjaw and has this sexual encounter that man cannot shake for the rest of the film. And it feels like that bank scene almost singularly only happens to make the future meetup between Lockjaw and Perfidia possible. That was the only reason for that entire scene. And it seems quite stupid. We have a scene that essentially is a rape scene. But I'd be unsurprised if people walk out of that film believing that it was Perfidia who sexually assaulted, didn't sexually assault because Lockjaw was the consenting person in it. It's unclear the way that scene is portrayed what was Perfidia's consent to that setup. And was there even any ability for her to consent to that, considering what had happened and how he got a hold of her? And this is the setup, that bank robbery, to Lockjaw getting back in. And I'm not trying to give it the whole movie because maybe you should go watch it. But that the first interaction, then Perfidia has to shoot the guard and blow up their spot at a bank robbery. Y'all doing way too big revolutionary aesthetics of certain acts for me to believe that then you are this messy during a bank robbery. But that bank robbery ultimately leads Lockjaw to having direct access to her again. even now when I'm thinking back of the film, because that's not his first time getting a hold of her. Like, he works for the state. He has access to track her down, probably largely rooted in the fact that they don't consider surveillance at all. They are not masking. They are not obscuring their identities, hiding their identities. And so he's able to track her down. We get to that sex scene where it's not clear what the consensual elements are, but I personally walked out of that film feeling Perfidia did not have any ability to consent. That was sexual assault and rape. And then the bank shooting happens, and that is essentially when we then get him able to fully control her, and that's the setup for her leaving the United States and running away from the state after she snitches. The longer I talk about it, the more I realize, oh my gosh, this character really was badly written. Like, I want to give like the credit to how good the action was and how good overall. I understand somebody could walk out of this film feeling good about the film, but for Pridia's character and just her lack of development really truly bothered me, because even in that struggle, when she's presented with she can get off lighter if she turns in her entire activist group, we get her tussling in the bed, and then the next day everybody's turned in. Not a moment of thought. Not a moment of complexities. Not a moment of what is driving this lady's dreams, hopes, and ambitions. And then we don't have enough information about when this film is actually, what era this film was actually set in, because I don't know, but somehow she gets put on witness protection and she can walk across the border. Get the fuck out of here. This just was too much reliance on pussy power. And then we get to Regina Hall's Deandra character, and all we get there is mostly close-ups of Regina's scrunched up face. I mean, it communicates a lot of emotion. It sure do tell me a whole lot, sister. You did good with about 10 lines of the film they gave you. You did real good. But Paul Thomas Anderson, that was an even easier character for you to develop. Where was she for 16 years? What is she hoping for? What is she working towards? What is she dreaming of? And where is she going when they got her? Did they arrest her, put her on trial? Like, what is happening here? Why are we not getting any insight or thought process behind these Black women characters who are participating in the aesthetics of revolutionary acts? But there is no revolution without thought. So I want the thoughts. And we don't get the thoughts. We get pussy. All right, I get it. That lady waistline is T. Clock it, as they would say. But damn. My other gripe with the film, the Christmas Adventurers Club that Lockjaw is seeking entry into, and it's a white supremacist group that somehow, even though French 75 is not thinking at all about surveillance, this group is able to track down any sexual encounter you might have had with any non-white person. And they like Lockjaw because Lockjaw, as an immigration officer, has been using his power and means within it's a militarized force within the government agency to wipe out non-white people. He's been able to enact violence against minority groups, wanton, as a state-sponsored agent. And so Lockjaw is invited into this Christmas Adventurers Club, which is an ultra-rich, white supremacist with immense political power, secret society. And they get tripped up because supposedly Perfidia's child is his child that is derived from their, unclear, the force, sexual encounter. Somehow they're able to dig through all these files and pull this up. And I just don't like the fictionalization of the violence of white supremacy and really the violence of whiteness. Historically, the violence of whiteness happens in much more mundane ways. It does not need to be a secret society of ultra wealth, immensely powerful with state agency options. It doesn't need to fill some part of that agency that owns all them people in Severance. Like, that's exactly what it was giving. It was giving fantastical, fictional, not real. But no, white supremacy really is that violent. It does really eat its own, as is portrayed in the film, even though that was kind of an unsatisfying yet satisfying ending for Lockjaw. But the violence happens in far less theatrical ways on a daily basis in a historical way. It is very mundane. And it is enacted and extraordinarily violent to the everyday lives of Black people and other minorities. I was left with a question mark about why did we need to highlight state violence through a secret society? And why could that not just be represented in the way it finds you in everyday life? And that's why I liked Benicio del Toro's character, who seemed to be the most fleshed out character of the entire series. Now, supposedly Benicio helped develop his characters, and honestly, I don't expect any actor to have the historical and cultural understanding to develop their characters. That is up to the director, the executive producer, the writer's room, and you bringing in the cultural strategists and the consultants to add that to historians. Plenty of PhDs out here in the world that could have helped you out. Okay? I don't need Regina Hall or Tiana Taylor or even Jungle Pussy to be able to build out these interior worlds in a very meaningful way of their characters. Shout out to Benicio for having the ability to do that, but that also was not his responsibility. And his character, Sergio, who has a real sort of community level network of people who are not on the front giving revolutionary activists, but they are the real revolutionists of the film. They make their activism part of their everyday lives. And that is what really forms these bigger activist groups that then do turn into the revolutionaries that bring the revolution into full form. The small agitations, these on the ground, grassroots, networks, mutual aids, like those are the things that have to exist first. And then when the moment arises, they're able to all come together and then agitate the force that really moves to dismantling the state. The theatrics and the performance of blowing things up and making, Border Patrol officers jerk off to your body, that's Hollywood bullshit, okay? It's not to say that activists don't be fucking. They do. The revolutionaries do be fucking. Trust you and me. But this idea of even there's this scene where Perfidia and Leonardo DiCaprio's character changes names in the film. Y'all know who that man playing, right? But him and Perfidia are setting a bomb off, and she's like, let's fuck while the bomb blows off. And we don't even get any thought process about what creates that hypersexuality. What is she getting her rocks off to? What does she enjoy? What does she really love about this? It's just banging body, let's showcase it. Banging body while pregnant, let's put a rifle in her arm and let her shoot it off into the air. I guess that's part of the great cinematography. You get some really crazy imagery that comes out of the film, and it gives aesthetics with no thought. And therefore, what is a revolution without any thought? I don't know. It's just a movie that's kind of good, but not that great, I guess. Thanks for watching. If you're new here, please be sure to subscribe, and also go check out my last video on Bill Clinton and how he created the war against Black women, how he abolished welfare and he set up society to be poorer. Why the government in 2025 is so easy to dismantle? Yeah, Clinton.
Governor Bill Clinton, Democrat of the state of Arkansas.
I'm so privileged to have this opportunity to talk to you. You were here in Boise not too long ago, and you were voted my favorite governor the whole conference.
Well, thank you. It's a beautiful town.
Bill Clinton did what Ronald Reagan wished he could have done, what a Democratic Congress kept Reagan from doing.
We can ignore this terrible truth no longer.
Ultimately, under William J. Clinton's presidency, welfare was abolished when the movement to dismantle it was cloaked in the liberal rhetoric of Clinton's third way politic.
I want to reinvent government to make it more efficient and effective.
We can be the party of opportunity again, not the party of government.
Put people first. Empower people. Don't weigh them down with big bureaucracies.
To transform a broken system that traps too many people in a cycle of dependence
to one that emphasizes work and independence.
And in abolishing welfare, Bill Clinton cemented the cultural shift towards conservatism that Ronald Reagan introduced into the American sphere. This choice to cement the legacy of Reagan by expanding state block grant funding programs and abolishing welfare laid the foundation for the rapid dissemination that we are witnessing today in 2025.
Here's the interview with Elon Musk and the rest of the Doge crew. We finally asked the one question on our mind.
What does big balls do?
So one of our